what he's being known for with Cassie, I can only equate to some of the things that I've seen him and Kim go through.
Years old. You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy camp?
Hell no.
See? I mean, back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the frosted flakes. You know what I'm saying? Before paws was invented. You know what I'm saying? But it's my brother for real. We used to actually wrestle off of the frosted flakes because he used to always get up early. Now he's one of the richest stars in the world.
Yo, what the did Puff just say?
Kim is dead. Heavy D is dead. Andre Harrell is dead. The only two left are Puffy and Al almost died. Isn't that interesting?
There's no way this kid should be getting, this man should be getting an icon award when all he has done was destroy the people around him.
Welcome back to another episode of Swamp Stories. For this one, we do something that we've never done before. We take a deep dive into one of America's most controversial figures. He's loved by some, hated by others, but everyone knows that he's a boss that you never want to piss off. As talented of a genius as he is, he's also known to be equally as angry, manipulative, and flat out evil. So in this video, we gather information and opinions to create an unbiased and hopefully accurate depiction of the man himself. This is Surviving Diddy, so let's dive in. The story begins in 1970s Harlem, a very rough place at the time. Poverty and violence ruled the community, and people did what they had to do to survive. One of these people was Melvin Combs, a man who climbed the ranks as a dealer in Harlem. But Melvin lived a double life, one where he risked his life and freedom in the streets, and another where he provided for his wife and 2 children. But by all accounts, Melvin and his wife did a great job sheltering their kids from the chaotic streets. Sadly though, in the mid-1970s, Melvin would lose his life to a deal gone wrong. On paper, Melvin was just another statistic, one of the thousands in New York City. But to his son named Sean, he was his everything. Sean was in elementary school when his father passed away, and his mother always told him that it was a car crash. Her idea was to shelter him from all things bad, and she even moved him into the suburbs. So in the 6th grade, the family moved to the city of Mount Vernon, and Sean attended a private Montessori school. In many cases, going from inner city to a private school can be a struggle, but not for a young Sean Combs. He was highly intelligent and charismatic, an instant leader amongst boys. So Sean spent the rest of his adolescence in Mount Vernon, thriving amongst his wealthier classmates. After high school, his good grades led him to the prestigious Howard University. There, he became an absolute star in all facets. He joined a fraternity and was known for throwing the best parties in DC. On top of this, he started a cab service that would safely take home drunk students after parties. He was already a natural businessman, and everyone knew that he was destined for success. All he had to do was wait patiently for his first major opportunity. For him, this would come rather early. In fact, it was in 1989 after his freshman year. While home in Mount Vernon, he linked up with a good childhood friend named Dwight Myers, also known as Heavy D. Growing up, Heavy D was like a big brother to Sean, a mentor in many ways. Well, Heavy was a talented rapper, and by 1989 he signed a major deal with Uptown Records. So over the summer, he introduced his friend Sean to the owner of Uptown Records, a respected mogul by the name of Andre Harrell. Right off the bat, Andre took a special liking to a young Sean Combs, like an oddly special liking. I guess he saw major potential in him because he decided to give him a major opportunity right away. So in the summer of 1989, Sean was hired as an intern at Uptown Records. Over the summer, Sean spent countless hours in the studio and in meetings with major artists from around the country. It was truly a dream come true for a freshman in college, something that's pretty much unheard of. Well, the fall comes around and Sean has to return to campus in DC. Andre didn't want him to go and tried to convince him to drop out and stay with the label, but Sean's mother was not having it. So together they came to a compromise. Twice a week, Sean would take the train from DC to New York to be at the Uptown office. This was 4 hours each way, meaning that Sean spent a total of 16 hours a week just to remain an intern at Uptown. This really didn't make any sense. What could he bring to the table that required him to do all of this hassle? Well, you might find out in just a second, so hold on. This crazy lifestyle continued for a few months until Andre Harrell put his foot down. He offered him a full-time job at the label if he would drop out of Howard and return back to New York. Sean accepted it and it worked out extremely well. This is because at just 20 years old, Sean was promoted to the vice president of the label. Whoa, now we're all thinking the same thing, aren't we? Why in the world would Andre Harrell promote a 20-year-old to the vice president of his label? The music industry is one of the hardest to crack, and for most it takes decades to get this position. So how did Sean Combs really get this job so young? And that leads us to a little bit of deep diving history. Back in the day, Andre Harrell had a very similar story to Sean Combs. He was another college student in the Bronx hoping to one day work in the music industry. And while in college, he was discovered by a legendary music mogul by the name of Clive Davis. For those who don't know, Clive is famous for founding Arista Records and for being one of the first moguls to come out of the closet. While Clive took a special liking to Andre and took him under his wing in the music industry. Long story short, in 1985, Andre was given funding to start his own music label, one called Uptown Records. So just like Puff, Andre went out and discovered underground rappers, one of which being Heavy D. So again, this begs the same question: how did Andre get this position at such a young age? Well, according to Sean's former assistant, it's all a power dynamic with Clive Davis at the top. The insinuation is that the boss takes advantage of a young intern and will pay them back later on.
He loves the ability to manipulate and control people. Why? Most likely because he was victimized by his mentor, who loved to control people.
And his mentor was
Andre Harrell.
Tell us how
who was
he
mentored by Clive Davis.
Don't tell me that Andre Harrell got by Clive Davis too. Don't tell me that Andre Harrell got by Clive Davis too.
Regardless of the truth, stories like these have always been rumored in entertainment. Essentially, you get taken advantage of by those in power, and that's how you make it in your industry. Then the idea is that over time, the former victims become the perpetrators. Now, of course, these are all just rumors, but Jaguar does get more specific. When Sean was hired at Uptown, Andre Harrell had a personal assistant named Kim Porter, and the rumor states that she caught Sean doing special favors for Andre.
But then again, you know, you had it in for Andre because Andre used to make you and Kim Porter had footage of it.
The rumors have never proven to be true, but they will be important later on. Well, make of all that what you want, but the fact is that Sean's career took off from here. After becoming the vice president of Uptown, Sean truly put his head down and grinded for success. He scouted the local underground scene in order to find his first diamond in the rough. This is how he discovered his first artist in 1991, an MC out of Long Island by the name of Craig Mack. Craig was an instant success, but Sean wasn't satisfied with just him. While scrolling through the Source magazine, Sean was intrigued by a rapper in the unsigned hype section. This would be a young rapper out of Brooklyn by the name of Notorious Big. So in March of 1992, Sean got in contact with Big and brought him to the studio. He was blown away by his talent and instantly signed him to Uptown Records. Boom, this was his next Uptown protege. Now I know what you're thinking, but Biggie was a certified street dude and he was not going for that. It was strictly a business relationship, and here is where things get interesting. It's the fall of 1992 and Biggie completes his first album to be released. The debut album is called Ready to Die, and both him and Sean feel very strongly about the project. But there's a major problem in the way. Uptown's parent company refuses to release the album. They expressed that the album was not to their liking and contained too many explicit lyrics. As you would expect, Sean was upset and so was Biggie. Sean did not respond well to the decision, and because of this, he was fired from Uptown Records in late 1992. This was devastating, but Andre Harrell had his back no matter what.
Final straw for me was when MCA wanted me to not put out the Biggie Smalls album because they didn't like the subject matter, and they wanted me to tell him he's got to change his tone. And it wasn't up to me, I felt, to tell a generation what they could and could not do artistically. So I knew it wasn't going to work because he was coming from a new space and a new era. And Biggie Smalls was more like in the streets and telling street stories. And he told them, well, I'm really letting you go so you could get rich. I'm really letting you go so you could get rich.
But was this really the case, or was something else at play? Puff had just gotten fired from his dream job at the age of 23. Most people would be devastated, but Sean fell right back on his feet. Just a month after being fired, Sean started his own label called Bad Boy Records. Obviously, the 23-year-old didn't have the pockets to fund it himself, so it was initially a partnership with Arista Records. Wait, let's get this straight. So Sean was fired by Uptown and then given his own label by Uptown's bosses. How does that make sense? Well, it's possible that Jaguar Wright was correct.
He stepped around Andre Harrell and gave you the keys to the kingdom. Andre was in line.
So again, here's the idea. Andre Harrell had to do special favors for Clive Davis in order to be hired and then get his own label. And once Andre established his label, he repeated the same cycle on Sean Combs. But for former Uptown singer and assistant Jaguar Wright, she believes that Clive Davis was in on it as well. I guess her idea is that Sean did things for Andre in order to be hired, and then he did things for Clive in order to climb the ranks. And being that Clive is above both of them, he had the authority to give Sean his own label.
Andre got passed over. Like, how do you go from being the president of Uptown and losing your entire company to your intern? Like, Puff started out as an intern.
And that's because you know Clive Davis, and we all know he has lots of secrets. Clearly, he trusts you. He stepped around Andre Harrell and gave you the keys to the kingdom. Andre was in line.
If the rumored power dynamic is true, then Clive Davis did replace Andre Harrell with Sean Combs, meaning that now, instead of Andre, it was Sean doing special favors for Clive. And as a reward, Clive made Andre drop him from Uptown and gave him his own label. Of course though, this is all silly speculation. But what's not speculation is that Uptown's artists were released from their contracts and were able to sign with Bad Boy Records. This way, Sean now had full control over Biggie and Craig Mack. Well, after starting Bad Boy, Sean started going by the alias Puff Daddy. This is a name given to him by his mom because when he was a kid, he used to huff and puff whenever he was mad. So now we enter the era of Puff Daddy and Bad Boy Records. Puff's Bad Boy released their first album in July of 1994, which was Craig Mack's Flavor in Your Ear. The album took off to immediate success, and this is how Bad Boy entered the industry. Then just 2 months later, Biggie's debut album Ready to Die released as well. Both albums did well, and Puff was eager to keep it going. So just 2 weeks after Biggie's album, Bad Boy released Craig Mack's second album, Funk the World. Puffy couldn't miss, and he was eager to recruit more and more new artists. He was becoming so respected in the industry that other moguls were coming to him for advice. And that takes us down to Atlanta, Georgia. In 1992, music mogul L.A. Reid discovered a 12-year-old singer named Usher Raymond. While watching him perform at a local talent show, he saw some Michael Jackson in him. He was so impressed that he signed him to his label LaFace Records at just 13 years old. Interestingly enough, LaFace Records was under the Arista umbrella. Just keep that in mind. Well, the story goes that in order to prep Usher for his music career, he was sent to go live with none other than Puff Daddy. So at 14 years old, Usher was sent to live with Puffy full-time, something known as Puffy's Flavor Camp. I guess the idea was for Puffy to mentor him and send him down the right path. But according to Usher, there was a lot more going on than just that.
I moved to New York City and I lived with Sean Puffy Combs for a year.
That's the crazy thing. Now, that was L.A. Reid's idea, right? We're sending you
New
over
York
to
City.
something called Puffy Flavor Camp.
There you go.
To learn
Flavor Camp.
Yeah,
Flavor
that's what it
Camp.
was called. And you're going to go to Puff Daddy's. He's going
In the 90s, do you understand what that's like?
Puffy's place was like just filled with chicks and orgying like nonstop, right?
No, not really. I
Come
mean,
on.
but hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle,
Right.
And I saw it, and it was, but I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at. It was pretty wild. It was,
So nobody
it was crazy.
tried to, some woman didn't come along.
I didn't say
that. Okay.
I didn't say that. What I did say is that there were very curious things taking place, and I didn't necessarily understand it.
Biggie Smalls was there.
Biggie Smalls was there. Lil' Kim, Craig Mack.
All these people
all
are
of
hanging around.
Yeah, man. Faith Evans,
And your parents
Jodeci,
were
Mary J.
okay?
Blige. They didn't know nothing about this shit.
Oh.
I was having a good time. You know what I mean?
Does he have you doing any chores? Are you doing dishes at all? I mean, to keep you humble somewhat? Or are you just like, can you stay up till 4 in the morning with them and party?
I mean, I could. I actually stayed up longer than them.
And what kind, do you have money? What's going on?
I mean, I had like per diem. I had like,
What
like
a
a living.
life.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
14 years old. You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy Camp?
Hell no.
See?
Many people out there believe that Usher was Puffy's first victim of the power ritual. There's no proof to show that, but these clips may convince you that something strange was going on.
I mean, back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the Frosted Flakes. You know what I'm saying? Before pause was invented. You know what I'm saying? But it's my brother for real. We used to actually wrestle off of the Frosted Flakes because he used to always get up early with me. Now he's one of the richest stars in the world. And
What the fuck did Puff just say? Nobody's gonna acknowledge this but me. Puff just said we used to wrestle over the Frosted Flakes, and we're streaming live. That was stupid.
So what do you guys think? Is Usher a part of surviving Diddy, or is this just a silly assumption? Well, now we move on to the next chapter. Regardless of all the nonsense, Puff was truly a genius at discovering and developing artists, and in the process he was gaining immense wealth and power in the industry. As you would expect, the success got to his head pretty quickly. By many accounts, Puff grew an obsession with having complete control. He wanted control over everyone around him, even for the silliest things. So here is the first example. The year is 1995 and Craig Mack is eager to continue his success, so he puts together his third studio album, one by the name of Operation Get Down. The story goes that he brings the album to Puff to get it released, but things don't go as planned. Puff allegedly tells Craig Mack that if he wants the album released, he has to fire his manager and then hire a bad boy manager. But Craig's manager is one of his closest friends and has been rocking with him since day one. Because of this, Craig is loyal to him and tells Puffy no. Even though it's a silly request, Puffy is pissed because he doesn't have control over the situation.
Puff told Craig Mack if he didn't change management, he wasn't with him no more. Craig wasn't getting rid of his management. Craig said, yo, listen here, man, I'm not changing my manager just because you want to. Puff said, yo, I ain't with that kid no more. Not at all. I was right there when he said that. Told Craig Mack, you don't change your management, I ain't fucking with you.
Craig stands on his principles and refuses to fire his manager, so Puffy decides to be petty. He completely stops paying him and refuses to release his music. This made things awkward at Bad Boy, as Craig no longer had the power to control his career or his narrative. In this 1995 interview, you can see the awkwardness on full display. Like, Craig Mack could not believe that Diddy would really lie on camera like that.
I'm sure you got much things in store for my man.
Yeah, definitely. We got a new album we're working on him to drop in January.
You can see the disbelief in Craig Mack's face, like no way he's saying this. From here, frustrations grew further between Bad Boy and Craig as Craig felt betrayed by his boss. I was your first artist. I was the one who took the risk and signed to your label. And more importantly, I've made you a whole lot of money. And now you're willing to throw away my career over a silly manager. What is going on? But not only did Puff want his career to dwindle, it's also rumored that he wanted him killed. Craig knew what Puff was capable of, so everywhere he went, he rolled around with a blicky, something very risky in New York City. He even contemplated getting rid of Puff in order to save his own life.
I had a gun in my lap. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to God. I'm like, Lord, I don't want to do this. But if it comes to getting ugly where somebody's going to be trying to kill me, I'm going to have to do something first or do something to prevent that from happening.
In what world should an artist have to fear for his life because his own boss wants to harm him? Well, Craig says that Puff tried to set him up at the studio, but when he showed up with certified goons, he decided to back off. So thankfully the situation didn't end terribly, but it was the start of a new era for Puffy. Not only had he become a control freak, but now he was bringing the threat of violence to the table. Slowly, the golden child of the industry was becoming the villain behind closed doors. And now we enter Diddy's violent era. While the Craig Mack drama was taking place internally, a whole nother beef was stewing in the industry. By the fall of 1994, Bad Boy had competition for rap's biggest label, and this would be California's Death Row Records. Particularly, Tupac had become the biggest star in rap and everyone wanted a feature. In this case, Uptown Records producer Ron G wanted Tupac to record a verse for Biggie Smalls. So Pac asked for $7,000 and Bad Boy agreed to pay for the verse. So Pac records the verse with Ron G and then is told to go to the Quad Studios in Manhattan to pick up the money. And that takes us to November 30th, 1994. Pac arrives in Manhattan and walks to the Quad Studios. As he's entering the building, he hears some Bad Boy associates yelling his name from the upstairs window. Pac is excited to meet with Bad Boy and he walks in the lobby to take the elevator upstairs. But as he approaches the elevators, two men in masks are waiting for him right there. Before he can run, the men whip out and reach for his pockets. Pac tries to fight them off, but that's when the men make a wild decision. While being carried out of the lobby, Pac flips off Notorious Big and other Bad Boy associates, assuming that they set him up. Thankfully though, Tupac would survive his injuries after a successful surgery. Speaking of injuries, if you or a loved one are ever injured, you deserve the absolute best on your side. That's because your injury could be worth millions. In that case, you can contact Morgan & Morgan, America's biggest injury law firm. Yup. With Morgan & Morgan on your side, you could get the money you deserve, and that's a fact. Insurance companies often lowball you to get you in and out of the door. But no, with Morgan & Morgan, they fight hard to get you what you deserve.
And if you don't believe me, check this out.
This past December, a Florida man was awarded $12.2 million when insurance only offered $350,000. What? That's 34 times higher. Yep, and Morgan & Morgan has over 4,000 support staff available at any hour. And they have over 100 offices nationwide plus 1,000 local lawyers available. Here's the best part, it only takes a few minutes to see if you have a case, and if so, it's free unless you win. So did you know that you can start your claim with America's biggest injury law firm with just one click? It's literally so easy. To start your claim, go to forthepeople.com/swamp stories, or just click the link in the description. Well, after the incident, Pac wholeheartedly believed that Bad Boy set him up to be killed. At the time though, he couldn't do anything about it as he had his hands tied with a legal case involving a woman. In fact, the day after his surgery, he appeared in court where he was sentenced to 8 months in Rikers Island. While incarcerated, the national story was that Bad Boy set him up to be robbed. On top of this, Pac did an interview while incarcerated where he said that Bad Boy did it overtly. He claimed that when he was on the way to the studios, Puff kept calling him to see where he was. He wanted to know when exactly he would get in, and that was Pac's main reasoning for thinking they set him up. Because of this, Puff was under major scrutiny and he needed to clear it up.
So I saw him saying what's up to me, I'm about to get on the elevator, and he comes out shot.
The Tupac article had me pissed off, you know what I'm saying? Because first of all, he dissed my man. Said my man turned his back on him, and I know for a fact that didn't happen, you know what I'm saying? And like the rumors that's spreading is on some tip like we set him up, you know what I'm saying? And that's crazy,
If there's any psychologists watching, please let me know why Puff's eyes are having a dance battle. Anyways, Puff was not done clearing the air. In fact, he visited Tupac at Rikers Island to assure him that Bad Boy had nothing to do with it. But was this really the case? Because Puff's bodyguard claims that he let this happen to Pac.
The people who knew what was going to happen to Pac was in the studio, was in the part of the quad studio with Jimmy Hitchman, and that was Andre Harrell and Puffy. So Puff knew, Andre Harrell knew.
If Gene Deal's perspective hasn't convinced you, then maybe what happens next will. In February of 1995, Biggie released a hit song called Who Shot Ya, which many people think is a Tupac diss. And one of these people was Pac himself, who felt betrayed and lied to by Puff. You told me one thing to my face, but your actions proved otherwise. To an alpha male like Pac, that was the ultimate disrespect. Well, after the record, all peace was off the table and Death Row cut ties with Bad Boy. That takes us to August 3rd, 1995. It's the annual Source Awards in New York City, and Death Row are nominated for Soundtrack of the Year. Of course, tensions are in the air because the show is in New York, and everyone is curious if anything will happen. Well, Death Row wins the award, and Suge takes the stage.
First of all, I'd like to thank God. Second of all, I'd like to thank my whole entire Death Row family on both sides, you know what I'm saying? I'd like to tell Tupac to keep his guards up. We ride with him. And one other thing I'd like to say, any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row.
This was obviously a sneak diss at Puff, and the crowd was not feeling it. To make matters worse, Snoop Dogg takes the stage and doubles down.
The East Coast don't love Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. The East Coast ain't got no love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row. Y'all don't love us. Y'all don't love us. Well, let it be known then. We know y'all East Coast. We know we at East Coast and Alpha.
This moment here officially kicked off the Bad Boy vs. Death Row beef. This meant that Puff's gangster was now being put to the test for real. Being that they exist on opposite ends of the map, interactions would not be often, but being in the same industry, the sides were bound to cross paths. September 23rd, 1995. Here we are in beautiful, well, not at the time, but here we are in Atlanta, Georgia for Jermaine Dupri's birthday celebration at the Platinum House nightclub. Here, much of the rap industry will be in attendance by midnight. Early in the night though, it's just the Bad Boy crew and associates hanging in the club before it opens. This would of course be Puffy, his bodyguard Wolf, Too Short, Dallas Austin, and plenty more. So they're all chilling in the club and a couple of hours go by. And this is when they receive some unexpected visitors. At 10 p.m., the Death Row crew arrive at the Platinum House parking lot. First, a Death Row associate named Big Jake walks in the club to scope it out. He then looks around and sees Puff Daddy and Jermaine Dupri sitting at a table in the corner. He instantly walks back to the parking lot to tell Suge where they are. Then together, the massive duo walk into the club headed for Puffy. They walk straight up to the table, and that's when Suge Knight slaps Jermaine Dupri directly across the face. This is simply to get to Puffy, who's standing right behind him. Suge then grabs Puff by his arm and brings him in. He begins yelling at Puff, but that's when Wolf gets in between them. He tells Suge it's not gonna go down like that. So it turns into a brawl and they're all escorted out of the club. After all this, Suge and Puff actually hug it out and squash the beef. But then out of nowhere, shots go off across the street. So they all duck down and look over to see what's going on. All it is a man across the street shooting his gun into the air. But while everyone is distracted, a man walks right behind Big Jake.
We own the club, the Platinum House. I had been at Jermaine Dupri's party and I seen Jake, and he was looking for Puff and they was looking for Jermaine and them there, and I didn't see them at their own party. Jermaine Dupri, his security, Puff with Wolf. And Jake looks in and see these guys. Suge came back, boom, 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 boom. He came right in and slapped the shit out of Jermaine Dupri. Bah! And Puff was standing right there, and he snatched Puff with one hand. Suge had him with one hand and was shaking him. Then Wolf reached over and grabbed him. Shit ain't going down like this no more. Standing there, Suge's in front of with Puff. They walked to the limo. All of a sudden, somebody started shooting across the street. And I could see the dude just busting, pop, 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 pop. They were called the play for the overlay. They started shooting across the street to make everybody look. We looked, the dude came out of nowhere and just touched Jake. And Jake was about 400 pounds.
Big Jake was Suge's best friend and Death Row's security wherever they went. So this loss was devastating to Death Row, but they had no idea who did it. But then a few days later, 3 witnesses reported that Puff's bodyguard Wolf was the assailant. Whoa, did Puff's bodyguard take out Suge Knight's best friend? Well, about a week later, Wolf was arrested for the incident. So, does this mean that Puff ordered the hit of Suge Knight's best friend? Death Row definitely assumes so, but Wolf was able to beat his case about a year later. In the meantime though, the beef was up. With Tupac shot and now Big J killed, Death Row was looking at Puffy like an absolute menace. And coincidentally, not too long after the loss of Big Jake, Tupac was released from Rikers Island. As soon as he got back to LA, he hopped in the studio and recorded Hit 'Em Up. One, if not the most disrespectful song in rap history. He dissed Biggie by saying that he smashed his girl and pretty much obliterated the whole bad boy camp. As you would expect, Puffy was pissed. But at this time he felt invincible, so he decided to do the unthinkable. He decided to schedule a bad boy tour on the West Coast from Seattle down to San Diego. However, he knew that the tour was a risk, so he decided to tap in with his best connection in LA. This would be a man named Keefe D, who he met at a hydraulic shop in Compton. Essentially, in 1994, Puff asked Keefe if he could borrow one of his cars for a video, and they locked in from there.
He had called up our hydraulics place and asked to use a lowrider.
But Keefe wasn't just a car guy, he was also a high-ranking member of Compton's Southside Crips. So naturally, when Puff announced his tour, he hired Keefe and the Southside Crips to protect him.
He had a West Coast tour coming up, but Zipper came pick me up. We rolling up Greenleaf in our neighborhood, and his phone ring, boom, and it was Puff. And he like, "You think it's cool to come out here and do concerts?" I'm like, "Why it wouldn't be cool? Just let me know the dates and give me some tickets." We had the Crips there, but I see he was trying to play us against each other. Crips, Bloods, you know what I'm saying? Sugar, Blood, we the Crips.
So behind the scenes, Puff was potentially creating a beef between Compton Crips and LA Bloods.
I guess he played it smarter. Dude with the red, I get the blue.
Well, thankfully, nothing happened and the tour went smoothly. But later that year, they would run into each other at the Soul Train Awards and they would have a standoff backstage. Allegedly, Tupac and Suge pulled up on Puffy.
You hear the door go boom, and then you see Tupac with Suge and about 1,000 Bloods and Crips walking down the middle of the auditorium, just screaming because Big them had just went off. So just imagine Tupac coming, walking down the aisle, walking up the steps, and just walking into the back. It wouldn't have been too good if they got hold to him, because they couldn't have handled what they had with them at that time. Like, nah, they were totally outnumbered.
Puff felt embarrassed and disrespected, and something needed to be done. So allegedly that next night, he took Keefe D out to dinner on the Sunset Strip. And there, according to Keefe, Puff offered him $1 million to get rid of Pac.
He and Puffy are at this place called Greenblatt's Deli on Sunset. And he tells Keefe D, "Man, I just need you to take care of this situation with Suge and Tupac."
Keefe, he's claiming that Puffy offered him $1 million to kill Suge or Tupac?
Both of them. Yeah, both their names came up.
$1 million in 1995 is equivalent to over $2 million today. And to a Compton Crip who's probably broke, this is life-changing money. If this is actually true, then Puff is a cold man. Because there's no way in the world that any gang member would ever turn this down. And Puffy knew this. It was only a matter of time. September 7th, 1996. It's a big day in Las Vegas as Mike Tyson is set to fight at the MGM Grand. Of course, for the big fight, all of the celebrities are in town, including Tupac. Well, it's the afternoon and everyone is having fun before the event. Particularly, Tupac and Suge Knight are walking through the casino lobby. That's when they're approached by a man who's being disrespectful. This would be a young man named Orlando Anderson, the first cousin of Keefe D and fellow Southside Crip. Well, the story goes that he disrespects Pac and Pac socks him in front of everyone. Orlando is furious, so he goes and gives a statement to police.
Tupac punched me.
Then he meets up with Keefe D and tells him about what happened at the casino. So Keefe and Orlando sit in the hotel room thinking about what they can do. Then they get a call from a very important factor. This would be a New York plug and associate of Puffy by the name of Eric Von Zip. Zip allegedly calls them and says to meet in his rental car. Keefe and Orlando hop in and he hands them a Glock 40. They then hop out and Zip takes off. Keefe and Orlando then hop in their own car. 11 p.m. The Tyson fight empties out and Tupac hops in Suge's BMW 7 Series. Suge then pulls off and stops at a red light on Las Vegas Boulevard. Coincidentally, Orlando and Keefe happen to be reaching the same red light. They hear some girls yelling Tupac's name and approaching the BMW. That's when they pull alongside the car. From there, Orlando rolls his window down and the rest is history. The incident shocked the world and shifted all the attention away from the Mike Tyson victory. The world's biggest rapper was now in critical condition and not expected to survive. 5 days later, on September 13th, Tupac was pronounced dead at the hospital. Everyone wanted to know who did this, but no witnesses ever came forward. Well, here is where things get juicy. Damn, that was corny. Right after the news broke, Keefe D recalls getting a call from Puffy. He claims that Puff asked him, "Was that us?" and promised him the $1 million reward.
You said that Puffy called and said, "Was that us?"
Because Puffy called too, right?
Yeah, him and Biggie's wife. What's her name?
Faith Evans?
Yeah.
So tell me about that. Them 2 calls and everything.
He just asked, "Was that us?"
Who said that?
Puff did.
Now it's time for Puff to pay up. He allegedly sends $1 million check to Zip and tells him to wire it to Keefe.
Zip had a check in his right pocket, right back pocket, and that check was for $1 million.
Now, all that needs to happen is for Zip to deliver it to Keefe and his life is changed forever. But did you guys think that that would actually happen?
So the FBI told you that Zip kept that money as well.
They said Zip's a dirty. Everybody cross you.
You guys never got any money?
Never.
For anything?
Nothing. Not even a pair of Sean John drawers.
Man, what was Puff thinking? It's almost like he orchestrated this.
But he never gave the money to him.
But thank God he never gave him the money, right? Think about it. If he gave the money, Puffy will be in prison now, money for hire.
You know, Eric Von Zip keeping the money kind of shielded everyone from the situation in its own
So he's a savior
type of way.
According to the FBI, because Zip didn't give the money to Keefe, Puffy dodged prison. But here's my question. Is Puff really responsible for what happened to Tupac? Yes, he did offer the $1 million, but it was Tupac jumping Orlando Anderson that really caused the situation, right? Well, Keefe disagrees as he thinks that Puff is to blame.
If I wouldn't have never met him, I wouldn't have never been involved in this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, man. So you feel like Puffy, he's the reason for your empire and Suge empire going down because of the whole situation with Tupac.
Exactly. He the only one still balling. Because he pitted us against each other, it seemed like.
But what do you guys think? Is Puff responsible for the loss of Tupac, or is Keefe D a grown man not taking responsibility for his actions? Well, if you ask Diddy, he'll tell you that he had nothing to do with it.
Now, it was this documentary that claimed, which we know wasn't true.
Yeah, check this out. We don't talk about things that are nonsense. We don't even entertain nonsense, my brother. So we're not even going to go there with all due respect, but it's nonsense.
Which we never believed, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Regardless of what you believe, the truth is that Puff was becoming the boogeyman of the rap game. With Big Jake and now Pac gone, Puff felt like nobody could mess with him. His violent ways were just starting, and that takes us to the next chapter of the story. After the passing of Tupac, Puff went about his life like nothing had happened. But for whatever reason, his bad boy artists were not so secure in their ways. In fact, they were very cautious of their whereabouts and made sure to avoid California at all costs. Eventually though, they would have to go back to Cali. And that takes us to the Soul Train Awards of 1997. The awards are held in Los Angeles, and because of this, the bad boy artists do not want to go. In particular, Mace thinks it's too risky, and Biggie decides to not go at all. He happens to have a broken femur, and he tells Puff that he's in too much pain to fly back and forth. He also mentions that going to LA is not the best idea, which is really the real reason. But Puff tells him that he'll be safe and nothing will happen. And according to the bad boy president Kirk Burroughs, he kept convincing him relentlessly.
We could not go, but Biggie did have an inconvenience. He had a car accident. I think it was in Brooklyn, maybe downtown Brooklyn. He had a broken femur at that time, and he was recovering from that. Big-sized person, could not really sit comfortably in a plane, not even first class, with a cast on. It was uncomfortable. He was talked into going to the LA portion of the trip.
Strangely though, Puff doesn't care if Biggie goes to the award show, he really just wants him at the after party.
Yo, that whole week, man, Puff was like, yo, man, yo, Big, you gotta come to this party, you know, and he wasn't getting the response that he needed from Big to make sure that he was going to the party.
Finally, Biggie caves into Puff and decides to come to LA. But what Puffy doesn't know is that directly after the award show, Biggie will be flying to London. This is because Clive Davis booked him for a major media appearance where he will be introduced to a worldwide audience. March 7th, 1997. The award show takes place and everything goes smoothly. That's when Biggie tells Puff that he's headed for the airport to fly to London. As you would expect, Puffy is livid, and he calls Clive Davis right away. He tells him to cancel Biggie's appearance in London because he wants him at the party in LA.
But it was put together so that Biggie could receive an international press junket in London with all press from around the world meeting him that Saturday, Sunday after the Friday award show night. Diddy called late Friday night saying, he's not going to London. Call Arista, cancel it. You go. You represent it. You go. He's not going. He wants to stay here in LA. So we knew how big of an event that could be.
Strange, right? Wouldn't you want your artist to fulfill this amazing opportunity? Making him skip out on a worldwide appearance just so he could go to some silly party? It doesn't quite make sense. On top of this, earlier in the day, Mace warned him that some guys might be coming after them.
They was telling him that they wanted Big and Puff, and he was all right, he was good. Me and Mace spoke, and then he was telling me all them bloods and everything that was out there.
If this wasn't enough, Gene Deal informed him as well.
I said, Puff, I got some intel. The guys are coming to kill us tonight at the museum party.
Here was Puff's response.
He said, Gene, I don't want to hear that. He said, you ain't got to go if you don't want to go.
So Puff knew there was a threat and brushed it off. Puff, Big, and most of Bad Boy are at Steve Stout's party in the Hollywood Hills. At 12:30 a.m., LAPD show up to shut down the party due to a noise complaint. Because of this, everyone at the party is forced to go their separate ways. For Biggie, he rolls out with his friends D-Rock, Lil Cease, and his driver G-Money. At 12:45, they stop at a red light on Fairfax and Wilshire. And that's when a Chevy Impala pulls right beside them. The incident shocked the world again, and everyone assumed that this was revenge for Tupac. Now, of course, this may be true, but something that happened directly after is very strange. Puff took a flight to San Diego just 2 hours after Biggie's passing.
Puff went to San Diego and they put him on a jet about 2 hours after Big died.
See, I don't know everything about the world, but what I do know is that when your best friend dies, you don't leave them. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and all I can think of is, was Puff involved in the passing of Biggie? Well, his bodyguard Gene Deal seems to think so.
You gotta look at what people do, man. You know Pac just got killed. It ain't no kind of business Big was doing. Big couldn't even walk, he couldn't run. Puff ain't want none of that beef. So what I'ma do is, y'all want the sheep? I'ma put him out the pasture. Catch him if you can. If you the wolf, if you got that wolf in you, catch him if you can. Why in the hell you would put your man in a situation, there's plenty of places Big could have been. Why the West Coast?
Did Puff sacrifice Biggie in order to stop the beef on the West Coast? You guys tell me. There's no way that Puff would do this to his closest friend and main artist, right? I mean, after his passing, he even released songs to commemorate him. Not to mention that he spoke highly of him in interviews as well.
And as far as my theory, it would be inadequate for me to speculate. I would just be like everybody else to speculate on who did this or why it was done. I mean, one thing I do know is that it was evil, it was ignorant, and it hurts, you know what I'm saying?
What has it been like emotionally for you? I mean, it's a tragedy. Seeing a close friend like that gunned down. What have you been going through?
Honestly, you know, it's been hard. I mean, that's the only way I could describe it, you know, when it wasn't supposed to be like this.
Let's talk about that. Tupac Shakur's death about 6 months ago kind of showed how vulnerable rap artists are.
Yes.
Did Biggie at all feel that his life was in danger?
He never told me, I can only speak, he never told me he felt that his life was in danger. We always, me and him, we always had conversations, and I'm very close with God, and through our relationship, I was trying to show him how God is his friend, and he was taking in God as his friend, you know, and it was a gradual thing.
After seeing this interview, are you guys convinced that Puff had nothing to do with it? Who knows, but wow is all I have to say. But I'm not the only one who feels uneasy. In fact, Bad Boy's second biggest artist felt sick to his stomach. In the height of his rap career, Mase decided to leave Bad Boy and to become a pastor. His relationship with Puff had fallen apart, and they've been arguing over money ever since. So with Biggie and Mase gone, Bad Boy was falling apart at the helm. But leave it up to the genius of Diddy, he would quickly replace their talent. In 1998, Puffy would discover an East Flatbush rapper by the name of Shine Poe. Shine was brought to him by DJ Clark Kent, and he was so impressed that he signed him to a major deal on the spot. The deal was worth millions of dollars, and Shine was given 3 cars and 2 homes. Shine was Diddy's new protege, and it was working out really well. They were quote-unquote best friends, and Puffy had him rolling with him everywhere. Maybe he was a changed man, and this was the artist he was not going to fall out with. Or maybe Sean Combs just is who he is. December 27th, 1999. It's a big night for Shine as his debut album is finally finished and it's ready to drop after New Year's. So to celebrate, Puff takes him out to Club New York in Times Square. It's Puffy, his bodyguard Wolf, the infamous J-Lo, and of course Shine. As they're strolling through the club, Puff accidentally bumps into a man named Matthew Allen, also known as Scar. This is bad because Scar happens to be a notorious street dude from Brooklyn. Well, he instantly turns around after being bumped and sees who it is. He then decides to make a scene and starts yelling at Puff in front of everyone. Then, according to witnesses, he threatens Puff and even threatens Shine as well. He then does the unthinkable. He grabs for his waistband and all hell breaks loose. Shots ring out and everyone runs outside the club. 3 people were injured in the incident, but thankfully everyone made it. But here is where things get interesting. In typical New York fashion, Scar went straight to the police. He told them that both Puff and Shine targeted him. So the next morning, Sean and Shine were both arrested. Could this be the incident that finally takes Puff down? Puff hired the 2 best lawyers in America, Johnny Cochran and Ben Brofman, but of course Bad Boy did not provide a good lawyer for Shine. Either way, both of them were facing major time in New York prison, so here's how it went. For Puffy, his amazing lawyers worked hard and he was found not guilty on any charges. For Shine though, his case went completely differently. He admitted to letting a shot off in the air, but says that he was not the one responsible for the 3 victims. However, the jury didn't believe him and he was sentenced to 9 years in prison. Shine felt betrayed by Puff during the trial. That's because in his eyes, he saved Puffy's life and Jennifer Lopez's. On top of this, he claims that Puffy sent a witness to testify against him in order to take the blame off himself.
People probably have the impression that you're just consumed with the idea that, you know, justice wasn't served here and that somebody turned his back on you.
It's not a matter of, you know, turning your back on me. Like, how do you call a witness to testify against your comrade. But I'm facing 25 years, and you looking at probation. Yeah, those are the things that, you understand, are unacceptable. You don't have to hold my hand. You don't have to do nothing, but don't try to hurt me. Where, you know, he calling the witnesses, you know, to do me dirty, then you understand that, you know, well, man, if these guys is working for him, because I went to the judge like 3 times complaining about inefficiency with my lawyers, because they was just dumbing out.
So now, did Puffy sacrifice Shine so he could dodge a prison sentence himself? Well, of course, Gene Deal seems to think so.
And Shine know he had put people up to testify against him and all that. Ain't no way somebody gonna send me to jail for 10 years when we all could have walked away. Shine know what I'm talking about.
If this is all true, then it's another example of Puffy being disloyal to those he calls his friends. It seems like everyone else is disposable when his ass is on the line. Or you could look at it like this: in his defense, he had a lot on the line and he did what he had to do to be free. Either way you look at it, this is a major stain on the story of Sean Combs. After he won his case, Puff decided to wash away his past and start with a new persona. So the first thing he did was change his stage name to P. Diddy, or Diddy for short. Some interpret his name change as him trying to leave his old ways behind. Puff represented how angry he was as a kid, and anger led to so much destruction in his life. P. Diddy would now be the level-headed businessman, or at least that was the plan. After all of this drama and loss, he wanted Bad Boy Records to restart their success. But now without Craig Mack, Biggie, Mason, Shine, Diddy needed some new talent. So of course the musical genius went out looking for his next star. Diddy's strange recruiting tactics. First, he wanted to sign a talented underground rapper by the name of 50 Cent, but 50 recalls what he believes is strange recruiting tactics, like possibly Clive Davis, Andre Harrell activities. West Coast rapper Exhibit had a similar story as well.
I heard you tell a story before about how Puffy, he took you to a club before and you seen a whole lot of men kissing and you seen a whole lot of weird stuff going on.
Man, I ain't gonna touch that man. It's been talked about. Shout out to Puffy. Love, you know what I'm saying? All good. We gonna leave that alone, man. That shit put to bed. Done.
Now these two stories could mean absolutely nothing, and that's why I really didn't even want to include them. But this next part is pretty crazy. The year is 2003 and Diddy is looking to sign new artists. But in this case, an artist comes to his desk looking for a deal. This would be New Jack City actor and R&B singer Christopher Williams. Long story short, Christopher got a deal from Bad Boy, but how it happened is the real story. According to Jaguar Wright, the old rituals came back around. She claims that Diddy's lawyer walked into his office and witnessed Christopher Williams giving him favors.
I think it was like 03. There was a young woman. She's a lawyer. Or at least she was. She used to be an entertainment lawyer. I hope I won't be putting her in danger while she was working at Bad Boy, because she was one of the lead counsels for Bad Boy Entertainment. She witnessed something. She witnessed something that was disturbing to her. But what was really disturbing to her was the conversation that she had with Diddy after. See, Christopher Williams, I don't know, I guess he wanted to sign. I don't know what happened. But Puff was supposed to be giving him a demo deal, and he gave him a demo deal, and I guess it was supposed to turn into an album deal, which that never happened. But this young woman walked in to get approval on some paperwork, see. And when she walked in, the door wasn't locked, so she didn't think twice about just walking in, and when she walked in, she saw Christopher Williams on Puff. And I just don't know, he was like, it's power, see.
Of course, this is all rumors and speculation, so we'll leave it at that and move on to the next generation of Bad Boy. The next generation would be led by Southern rappers Young Jock and 8 Ball and MJG, both of which would go gold instantly, and the genius of Diddy was on display once again. And finally, with these two, there was no rupture between Diddy and his artists. However, just because things went smoothly with them does not mean that was the case with everyone else. So now we focus on another facet of his life. We enter the chapter of relationship abuse and drama of Diddy. So here is where things get really dark and scary. It all began in 1994 when Diddy got in a relationship with Kim Porter. When they first met, Kim was married to a singer named Al B. Sure, and they shared a son named Quincy. Well, once the relationship with Al B. Sure fell apart, Kim got together with Diddy and they had children of their own. Diddy also adopted her son Quincy, and everything looked like peaches and cream from the outside looking in. But internally, the relationship was on and off for years and rocky to say the least. In fact, the people around them say that Diddy was manipulative, controlling, and abusive towards Kim. Apparently, the relationship was terrible, but they stayed together for the sake of the kids. However, enough was enough and the couple officially went their separate ways in the early 2000s. In any bad relationship, separating is always the healthiest thing to do. Diddy moved on to new relationships and so did Kim. Kind of. During their separation, Diddy's controlling instincts could not hold back. As we now know, when something is out of his control, he absolutely freaks out. Even though he moved on to other women, he could not handle Kim seeing other men. And this is when the Diddy relationship mania truly starts. According to Bad Boy artist Mark Curry, Diddy began tapping her phone to know who she was talking to and where she was.
Anytime a man would go out his way to wiretap someone's phone or put taps in their homes just to monitor their conversation, that's a sign of insanity. He know everything she doing.
As Diddy allegedly overheard all of her conversations, he was bound to hear something that he didn't like. That day would come and it would definitely not be pretty. While listening to her conversations, he overheard her flirting with a man named Shakir Stewart. For those who are unfamiliar, Shakir was a respected lawyer turned record label executive, and at this particular time, he was the head of A&R for L.A. Reid's LaFace Records. Well, when Diddy overheard his relations with Kim, he allegedly went ballistic. According to lawsuits, Diddy was so mad that he tracked them down and even assaulted them. First, he targeted Shakir Stewart himself.
That made him so mad at Shakir Stewart when he went to L.A. Reid party, hit him with the chair.
This is bad, but not even the worst part about it. Allegedly, he also broke Kim Porter's nose.
Speaking of Kim Porter, because you knew Kim Porter, is it true that Diddy broke her nose?
Bust her nose, man. So when you see someone doing that, you can imagine everything else they do. They try to make it seem like she slipped and fell. She slipped and fell and broke her nose. Nah, the truth was she slipped and fell and landed on his fist.
If this is true, then that's just flat out terrible. And to make matters worse, it's said that Diddy had a deep hatred for Shakir Stewart even after all of this. Now, I can't prove anything, but something very strange would occur in 2008. On November 1st, 2008, Shakir Stewart was found inside of his Georgia home. According to his friends and family, Shakir was acting paranoid and unusual in the days before his passing.
Every time he called me, he was like real melancholy, you know, subdued.
He was in a kind of state of paranoia. He was indicating that he was being pursued. He was looking out the windows. He was indicating that he was being pursued. He was looking out the windows.
The situation is very mysterious, but I'll leave it up to you guys to determine what you want. Well, now we veer off into another Diddy relationship. In 2005, Diddy found his next bad boy protege. This would be a singer out of New Jersey by the name of Cassie Ventura. Diddy's genius revealed itself once again as Cassie was a success right off the bat. In 2006, she released hit songs Me and You and Long Way to Go and instantly became a household name. But Diddy saw more in her than just music. In fact, he really wanted to date her. So in 2007, a 38-year-old Diddy and a 20-year-old Cassie entered a relationship. The sweethearts of the industry. In front of the cameras, everything looked glamorous. But behind closed doors, things were worse than you can imagine. According to Cassie, this is when her life became a living hell. First, she claims that Diddy was physically violent. Of course, this is horrible, but the next part is even crazier. She claims that Diddy forced her into relations with other men, all while he watched. What the actual... Well, by 2012, Cassie had enough and decided to take a break from the relationship. As we know from the Kim Porter experience, this could only mean trouble. After leaving Diddy, Cassie began talking to superstar rapper Kid Cudi. And if you know anything about Cudi, you know that he's probably the chillest guy you could ever meet. Regardless, Diddy's jealousy and control issues ran rampant once again. According to Cassie, Diddy threatened Cudi and said that he would blow his car up. And what do you know, not too long after this, Cuddy's car was set to flames in his driveway. How I know this? Well, Cuddy actually confirmed it himself. But the jealousy does not end here. Obviously, Kid Cudi and Cassie did not last and they both moved on. Regardless, Diddy was still all up in her business, allegedly tracking her every move. And that leads us to an even crazier story. It's about the year 2012 and here we are in the beautiful Washington, D.C. We're here because Cassie has a studio session with up-and-coming rapper Wale. And before the session, Wale warns his entourage not to stare at Cassie. This is because he knows that Diddy is absolutely nuts for her.
Wale been telling us, like, before we even get to the studio with him and Cassie in the studio, Wale was already telling us, like, man, we better go to the studio with Cassie. Man, Diddy be acting crazy over her. Diddy don't want nobody working around her, so y'all make sure y'all don't look at her too wild or make her feel uncomfortable. Or if you see her security guys with her, just prepping us on how crazy Diddy act over her. Like, any guys that's around her in her vicinity, while Diddy not around, he kirks off, he goes off.
So the DC guys make sure to be as respectful as possible because Diddy could walk in the studio at any moment. And of course, Wale makes sure to keep everything professional.
Her and Wale doing what they do in the studio, but they helping each other. It's just professional, y'all. It ain't nothing like, they ain't doing nothing weird. I don't feel no weird vibes. I don't see no flirting or nothing. It's really professional. They making good music.
But here's the thing. Diddy does not want anyone with Cassie in the studio. Instead, he wants them to email their verses.
I guess they wasn't supposed to be there doing it in person together. They were supposed to send it or whatever, but they was trying to keep and do it in person together because they ain't thinking Diddy gonna pop up in here. Like, Diddy probably somewhere living his natural born life. At least that's what they thought.
Cassie's under the impression that Diddy doesn't know where she is, but we know better than that.
Crazy over them girls, like super duper stalking, like he be having private investigators following him, no niggas can't go around him, he very controlling. I swear to God.
So as you would expect, Diddy crashes the studio session.
But he came in with aggression, they moving, and then I looked, it was like a glance once he got a little bit past me, I'm like, damn, that's Diddy.
Allegedly, Diddy heads straight for Wale and chases him around the studio. And once they get a hold of him, they hold him over the balcony.
It's a balcony in the studio, like an out balcony you can see over the back. I swear to God, my grandmother, they got Wale over top of his feet. They got him off his feet, hanging off the balcony. Like, he hanging off the balcony, they dangling by his feet.
If this is true, then it's next level insanity. Aunt Glizzy is brave for putting this out there, but I'm sure there's tons of other stories that have never gotten the publicity. Also, let me mention that Wale has never confirmed this story. Well, according to Cassie, these sort of occurrences lasted for years after this incident, and she was finally able to break up with Diddy in October of 2018. This is when the madness ended for her, but this was not the case for everyone else. Just a month after the Cassie breakup, tragic news would come to the Combs family. On November 15, 2018, Kim Porter was found in her Los Angeles home. The news was shocking as Kim was such a beautiful and healthy person. Everyone was hurt and confused as the cause of death was not announced for months after the incident. On January 25th, it was officially announced that pneumonia was the cause, but it usually doesn't take that long to figure it out. And here is where the controversy begins. Rumors state that Kim was in the process of writing a tell-all book about Diddy and her relationship.
Kim Porter was working on a book before she died.
But wait, this doesn't make any sense. She died of natural causes, so what does a book have anything to do with it? Well, Jaguar seems to believe that this is a lie and that they covered up the true story.
Kim died from pneumonia, but there's the first coroner's report that said it was ruled a homicide and they found toxins in her body to prove that she had been poisoned. You know, they have poisons that create heart attack and pneumonia-like symptoms.
Now these are some serious claims, so now let's do some investigation. Firstly, the claims that it was initially ruled a homicide have not been proven. However, the fact that it took months to get a ruling is very unordinary. And because of this, a celebrity coroner named Ed Winter was asked to investigate. So, what did Ed Winter find? Well, he didn't find anything, but not for the reasons you'd think. Ed would sadly pass away of a heart attack not too long after. And as you'd imagine, Kim Porter's case has not been opened since. What do you guys think? Is Diddy powerful enough to take out Kim and Ed Winter? Make of all that what you want, but now we move on to another mysterious case. On May 7th, 2020, Andre Harrell was found in his Hollywood Hills home. The passing was ruled as natural causes as a result of heart failure. Now again, why would this be mysterious? Well, Jaguar has her suspicions.
Andre was writing a book right before he died.
Okay, so she thinks it's another book, but she also thinks that Diddy always had it in for him.
You know, you had it in for Andre because Andre used to make you.
I don't know. What do you guys think about this one? Is Diddy responsible for Andre Harrell? Now guess what? The mysterious cases do not end here. Now we focus on the legendary singer I'll Be Sure. Apparently, Al was working on a documentary of Uptown Records and his own life. Well, one day while he was at work, he mysteriously collapsed.
He fell into a coma. Well, he had a catastrophic medical emergency, but he is back.
I mean, there were so many things going on to the point where they were considering sending me to hospice. And what people don't truly understand unless you've been through this type of medical journey is taking for granted breathing, tying your shoes, speaking.
Again, Jaguar suspects that there was foul play.
And I'll Be Sure was working on the documentary of his life. And then he goes into a coma.
I don't know about this one, but again, what do you guys think? It is interesting though, through all the situations, it seems like Diddy is the only one to always make it through. From Pac to Biggie to Shine to Kim Porter to Andre Harrell and to I'll Be Sure. Could all of this be a coincidence, or is it a case of surviving Diddy? You guys tell me which ones you believe. Firstly, is Diddy responsible for the loss of Tupac? Secondly, is it possible that he sacrificed Biggie? Thirdly, did he betray Shine and kick him to the curb when things got sticky? And for the rest of the list, is it because they had information that he didn't want to get out?
The survivors and the late of Uptown Records, they were all writing tell-all books.
And she believes that the monster was created when Diddy was allegedly victimized.
See, what Andre did to you, it could have stopped with him. But you like the power too much. So all you did was emulate what Andre Harrell did to you. See, you were a victim, and then you became a victimizer. And that's what you chose.
After all these years, will Diddy ever pay the price for the things that he allegedly did? Well, probably not, because he is smarter than anyone he ever encounters. Like, I will say this, Diddy is a legitimate genius. If he took an IQ test, I promise you he'd be at the very top. Regardless though, Cassie would finally come forward against him on November 17th, 2023. This is when she came forward with a major class action lawsuit accusing him of all kinds of crazy stories. Everyone was shocked, like whoa, Diddy is cooked. But within just 24 hours, Diddy settled the lawsuit for an undisclosed amount. Many people estimate that the payment was over 8 figures. Diddy will most likely never go to jail, but not everyone around him can say the same. In particular, after telling everything on YouTube, Keefe D is now a wanted man.
It's becoming more apparent that Dwayne Keefe D. Davis likely talked himself into his own indictment nearly 3 decades after the murder of Tupac Shakur. We now know more evidence considered by a Clark County grand jury in returning an indictment against Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. It consists mainly of Davis's own words gathered over the past few years from interviews he gave.
I got no reason to lie.
Wow, wow, wow. You'd think that with all the crime in Vegas, they'd have other things to focus on. But in their defense, Keefe D did make it really easy. All they had to do was look on YouTube. But here's the real question, will Diddy get arrested in the case as well? Given the fact that Keefe did say that Diddy put $1 million on Tupac's head, it's definitely possible. However, he may be saved by Eric Von Zip's decision to keep the money. Personally, I can't see him getting arrested, but only time will tell. Well, this might be my favorite video that I've ever made, and I hope you guys feel the same way too. So if you want to see me make another video like this, let me know in the comments what you want to see, or hit me on Instagram as well. So thank you, and that's going to do it for this episode of Swamp Stories. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Peace!